we all perceive things in different ways. There are a lot of different factors that can influence how we perceive something, but one of those factors is judgments. So this video, I want to talk about the difference between seeing something while coming from that space of judging compared to seeing something from a space of clarity and stability within ourselves. So to define judgment for the sake of this video, it's when we have an emotional reaction about something and we convert that reaction into a perception. So when, for example, someone does something that irritates us, that irritation kind of forms part of our definition and view of the person in general. So someone who's always late, for someone like me who's always early or on time, I would have a tendency of judging someone who's always late as being unreliable, because I pride myself on always being on time and they are always late, and I can't understand how someone could so consistently be so unconcerned and inconsiderate about other people that they just are never on time. I mean, you always have to wait for the person and it delays everything, and so all of these kind of thoughts form part of the judgment, so that now when I think about that person, I get a little bit irritated and I don't really want to make plans with them because I know that they're just going to be late again and I'm going to be early and they're going to be so inconsiderate. And that's the that turns into the nature of our perception of a person. So we essentially impose our inner experiences onto that person. We impose our thoughts and we impose our very limited views onto them, meaning that in my mind, the person who's always late, the only reason that they could possibly always be this late is because they are inconsiderate and irresponsible and unreliable. Because the only times that I'm late, even though this is not true, but this is how the mind forms it or formats it, only times that I would ever be late consistently the way that they are is if I just didn't care about the people that I was meeting, or I didn't care about timeliness, and I didn't care about taking into consideration what someone else's days might look like. So we impose our views onto the other person. We impose our judgments onto them. And what this does is it creates a very limited scope of looking at their life, because it becomes a sort of a restriction of perception, because our view is the way that I see things is the only possible way, or the only possible valid reasons or driving factors behind why someone else must be doing something. So we look at another person through our own definitions, our own worldviews, our own experiences, and our own opinions. And what this creates is a sort of a conflict, because we're not seeing the person for who they are and where they're at and what life they're living. We're seeing them through our own tainted goggles. It affects how we communicate with that person, and it affects cases where, let's say that I'm trying to give this person advice on how to be on time and how to plan more effectively, my subconscious mind is going to be kind of popping up with all these little thoughts saying like, what's the point, they don't care, and like taking every opportunity to misconstrue and misinterpret whatever the other person is saying, so that I can validate my views and validate my opinions about them and validate my judgments about them. So that's going to happen in different degrees of extremity, of course. Some people are able to compartmentalize a bit better and not have their opinions influence their communication, but there will always be little elements of it that comes through. So now the difference between seeing something within that judgment, which is that imposition of our personal opinions onto the world and the people around us, and seeing something from a starting point of clarity and stability, the difference comes in at the scope of what we are considering within our views. So previously I might have seen the person who's always late as that must be one of those reasons that they're always late. But if I were to drop my judgments for a moment, if I were to truly step into their shoes and truly consider who they are, where they're at in their life, what they have lived, what their physical state is, what different challenges they might be facing, as soon as I start to take more factors into consideration and to look at who they are with a wider scope and not limit my view by my preconceived ideas so much, I start to consider, you know what, maybe what I thought the reasons for their consistent tardiness, maybe those reasons are unfair. Maybe I have not actually really been standing in their shoes and really considering what challenges they face in their life that cause them to be so consistently late. Maybe it's not deliberate. And it's not necessarily always going to change our relationships with people. I mean, sometimes there are people in our lives that maybe are not the best for us. And dropping our judgments about them does not necessarily change whatever choices we've made in relation to the relationship. So if there's someone in your life you've decided to cut out and to not have anything to do with them anymore, dropping your judgments may give you different views on why they may have behaved that way, but it doesn't mean that you need to bring them back into your life because now you suddenly understand them better. Understanding people does not necessarily mean that you have to allow their bad behavior. Understanding why, for example, this is an extreme example, understanding why a man might rape a woman doesn't make it okay that he raped that woman. It doesn't make it okay to leave him alone with women, or to not implement some sort of punishment or whatever. It doesn't make what the person did okay. It just helps us to understand their behavior, and that understanding can help us in the future. It can help us with ourselves in the future. It can help us with helping other people in the future, and it can help us to prevent really extreme examples of behavior. Again, this is now coming back to that very extreme example of rape, where not a lot of people will exhibit that kind of behavior, but we want to be able to understand why those few people who do exhibit this behavior, why do they do it? so that we can prevent it better in the future, so that we can prevent young people from developing those same behavioral traits, those same thought patterns, those same emotional patterns, those same obsessive thinking patterns that might lead them to doing really extreme stuff that hurt other people. All right, that was a little bit of a little bit of an off-topic ramble over there, so I apologize for that. But it does kind of give an example into the various scopes that we can take this perception, judging people within our perceptions, because it does link in with how we deal with bad behavior in our society as a whole, where a lot of the time, most of the time, most people just want to punish the person. Doesn't matter why they did what they did. It doesn't. Understanding the behavior is not the priority. Punishing is the priority. And unfortunately, that doesn't help us with solving the recurring issues that we are seeing in our society. Right. If you have any particular moments to share to be part of this conversation of establishing better relationships with other people and with ourselves by dropping our judgments to really, really see things with clarity, with stability, with openness, and without judgments, leave a comment. If you'd like to keep it anonymous, send me a private message. I can post your story anonymously if that's what you'd like. Thank you for watching. You're going to see me next time.